EdgeConneX expansion, KL Central Business District, Bukit Jalil, and Cyberjaya. These three locations candidates recently those newly established business there. And how are you trying to expedite the Malaysia's digital transformation? I know you're working closely with government officials here in Malaysia. So how's the expansion story tonight?
Right. So, I mean, it's needless to say, we're quite excited about Malaysia. We have obviously committed in a very large way. But, EdgeConneX is the reason why ultimately we have decided to make this investment. Our business model is actually simple. EdgeConneX was founded on a key principle, which is to be where our customers need to be and where they want to be. And the co-founders, or both of the founders of EdgeConneX, really instill that within the organization to say, listen to our customers, let's go and help solve their data center capacity needs. And Malaysia has become that in a very short amount of time. And so, again, with the great team that we have in Asia Pacific, our network of consultants and also the general community, we've been able to accelerate our growth and really enter Malaysia in a very fast way. I do have to highlight another key point. Without the support of the government, it would have made it extremely difficult. I think, again, as to my point earlier, that is one of the key factors that allows us to make such a big investment in a very short amount of time. Our announcement of 300 megawatts across 3 different locations in Malaysia are targeting very specific strategic sites. We have one in downtown KL, which mentioned Bukit Jalil, and Cyberjaya. Those, although they are relatively close, they all provide a different segment with the needs of our end customers. We will continue to invest in this country. There are additional markets that that are in our radar in Malaysia. But again, this is a big first step. We're very excited, and we're looking forward to the future.
I can really feel the excitement coming from you, but there are some challenges working in Malaysia. For instance, I've heard reports that the cost of 5G connection is too high right now. That could be lowered significantly, and that impacts data center operators like EdgeConneX. So what is the primary obstacles in doing business and expanding in Malaysia? How do you to fortify this digital infrastructure, and how is EdgeConneX overcoming those challenges?
That I would say that one of the key factors in infrastructure, when you make an investment into infrastructure, the economic return of such an investment is a very long period of time. And so when you think long term, one of the most fundamental key things that you need is political stability. And I think Malaysia has now recently really, there's a clear vision, there's a clear commitment from the government, and there's clear investments to make sure that digital infrastructure grows. And as a private enterprise, when you see the government taking that leap to say, hey, we will put our government systems onto the cloud, we will invest in telecommunications infrastructure, we will make it easy for governments to engage with the private sector. We will make it easy for the private sector to come in and clear hurdles with approvals, business licenses, business incentives. All of that is happening, and so that really helps us to make that decision to say the risk, the long-term risk is now not necessarily gone, but mitigated. And as long as we have clear understandings of what the laws are, as long as there's transparency, generally the private sector can figure out how to mitigate and manage that risk. And ultimately that's important because we're selling to our customers, right? And if our customers understand what our business model is and our long-term vision of our investments are in Malaysia, that gives them comfort to say, hey, I think the market is ready. I think EdgeConneX knows what they're doing. Let's go ahead and enter into a business collaboration together.
EdgeConneX is such a global a company that people are actually paying attention to where do they reaching out next, what's their next move. So I want to have this time. What are some of the pointers that you would give in terms of expanding? You mentioned regulations, you mentioned good policies. So what are some of those, headwinds or factors that determine EdgeConneX's next move or expansion strategy?
That's a great point, because if you look at a market like Singapore, very well developed, very high demand market, but obviously due to the constraints with land and power, a lot of that demand is now what we call the Singapore Plus strategy. And that in fact is helping the Malaysian market to grow, especially areas like Johor, which has very close proximity to the Singapore ecosystem. So I think for EdgeConneX, it's a constant prioritization. Our role is to continually manage where those opportunities are. But ultimately, as I said, the key fundamental, although it's difficult to execute, the strategy remains quite simple. Where do our customers need to be? And as long as the growth in cloud continues to grow, as long as laws become clear, that will enable our customers to say, let's enter Malaysia, let's enter Thailand, let's enter Vietnam. And so our role is to continue to manage where this demand is coming from. We make sure that we work very closely with our customer base to see where they need to be and how we can help them provide those digital solutions. That ultimately will drive our ability to make a business decision. Do we invest into a certain country or a certain market?
So if you're up for a challenge, we want to ask one of our reporters in the Philippines. Hazel, do you have a question for Sam?
I just want to ask regarding the markets in Malaysia. So, could you share unique challenges or opportunities that EdgeConneX has identified in locations like Kuala Lumpur, Bukit Jalil, and Cyberjaya, and how these insights are shaping your approach to each specific market?
That's a really good question. Your APAC solutions with these 3 sites.
Sure. So I think, the opportunities and challenges. So KL Central, I mean, it's a highly developed metropolitan city. And so the availability of land, but also the availability of power and the capacity and the volumes that we need is just not available, right? And so the site that we have acquired and the asset that we have acquired in KL Central is actually a very rare opportunity, because there really aren't many sites like that out there in the market. Now, the size of the KL or downtown KL site obviously limits us to a certain capacity, but that's where the Bukit Jalil and the Cyberjaya locations come into play, because it really allows us to scale up in a very high amount of IT capacity. So again, Cyberjaya being our largest of the 3 has a buildable capacity of about 200 megawatts of IT load. So that would probably put us as one of the, not just the largest in Malaysia, but one of the largest in all of Southeast Asia as a whole. So I think that's the opportunity. The challenge is going to be, again, accessing the power and making sure that the power gets delivered to our sites in time. And so when you have the longer that development cycle is, whether it's getting power or getting permits or actually physically building the building, the longer that development period becomes, the more risk you have to incur. And so the key is to shorten that timeline to getting your facility up and running. And in the industry, we refer to that as RFS, or ready for service state. The shorter we can, the more we can shorten that RFS state, the more appealing that solution becomes, not just from an investment point of view, but from our customers who need to deploy their cloud infrastructure immediately.
I hope that answers the question. It really did to me. Deborah, another reporter we have here. Do you have a question for Sam?
So, one of the notices that marketing expansion plans are often hampered by the lack of skills labor. And I was wondering what has been the experience in that context with Asia, what kind of skill building is required, and what are some of the significant strengths of the local labor pool?
So the potential, you mentioned skilled labor to run these newly established data centers. What is the good parts and what has to be improved in terms of training good people?
Right. As I mentioned earlier, getting competent staff is probably one of the 3 key pillars in building a successful data center business. Right now there's no such thing as data center 101 in the education system.
Should there be?
There's a big potential. So if anyone's in the education business, that might be a good opportunity. But so for EdgeConneX, for example, what we do is we look within the data center specialty to hire, retain, and train staff. But what we also do is we look outside of, say, core data center industries like oil and gas or other critical systems, critical facilities, biotech, energy, power plants, large-scale infrastructure, construction industry. So we find people who have the core skill set that is required in order to deliver these projects and operate these data centers, and then we train them. So one of the initiatives that EdgeConneX has globally is we have in our European headquarters in Amsterdam. Every new hire goes through a multiple week-long induction training where we bring them to site, bring all of our key leaders and the business heads to the same location, and we engage them into a training program to ensure the way they operate as a standard level of service, not just within EdgeConneX, but within the industry. So through that system and through that process, we're able to really train up the next generation of leaders to go into these facilities and operate them in an efficient and effective manner.
That's a very systematic, that's an important part, having the right person to run these newly established facilities. So I don't know if you can share with us, but what other specific markets are you looking to expand into? Can you give us a sneak peek of EdgeConneX's future expansion plan?
Well, when you look at the global, where we are in the global scale, we are in 30 different markets, soon to be close to 40 globally. So obviously we have the Americas, that's where EdgeConneX originated. We then moved into Europe, have greatly expanded there. APAC, the Singapore regional office opened 2 years ago, but we've moved very quickly through our expansion and implementation in India. We've gone into Jakarta. We have strategic investments in China and now Malaysia. So when you kind of look at the dots on the map of where are the established data center markets, there actually aren't quite that many. And it's no secret to say countries like Thailand, are markets that we need to monitor. Korea and Japan, tier 1 markets. That's an interesting decision because the constraints there are just land, power, and the prohibitive cost. All the things that Malaysia is the reason why we choose to make the investments here. So I think ultimately there are practical drivers that determine where we need to make our investments, where we think that our efforts and our funding can get the most efficient returns. That's obviously one of the things that we factor into the overall decision on which country we enter.
Thank you so much, Sam Lee, for your valuable insights and sharing with us your experience.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.